The oppressive heat of the underworld clung to Erra like a second skin, mirroring the simmering rage that burned in his obsidian eyes. Even in the flickering, sulphurous glow of the netherworld, the crimson of his armor seemed to pulsate with a malevolent light. Pacing restlessly through the cavernous halls, the very ground trembled beneath his heavy tread. Beside him, Isham, a lesser god of the underworld, watched with growing unease. Whispers of rebellion danced on Erra's lips, a storm brewing behind his dark, fathomless eyes. The ceaseless din of humanity, Isham Erra boomed, his voice echoing through the vast chamber, a tremor in the very bedrock. Their wars, their pestilence, a cacophony that disrupts the divine order. It grates on my very soul. Isham shifted nervously, the shadows flickering on his pale face. Patience, Erra. The great Marduk, king of the gods, will surely find a way to quell the mortals' unrest. Erra scoffed, a humorless sound that scraped against the silence. Marduk? Preoccupied with his gilded palaces, oblivious to the suffering that festers below. The time for patience has dissolved Isham, like smoke on the wind. We shall be the harbingers of order, the instruments of a terrible silence. Suddenly, the very air crackled with anticipation as a delegation materialized from the swirling shadows. It was Anu, the sky god, his once proud visage etched with worry. With a heavy heart, he presented Erra with 7 monstrous figures, their eyes burning with an unholy hunger that sent shivers down Isham's spine. These were the 7 demons of unimaginable destruction, chosen to be the instruments of Erra's wrath, the harbingers of a horrifying quietude. A dark thrill shot through Erra, a surge of power that made his very being vibrate. This was his moment. Yet, a flicker of doubt played across Isham's face. Erra, he rasped, his voice barely a whisper above the dripping of molten sulfur. Unleashing such power is akin to playing with fire. What if we lose control? Control. Erra's laughter echoed through the chamber, devoid of mirth, a chilling counterpoint to the groans of the tormented souls that eternally sweltered in the depths. There is no control in true order, Isham, only cleansing fire. Ignoring Isham's pleas, Erra, fueled by his own dark desires and a hunger for power that rivaled the hunger of the 7 themselves, stormed out of the underworld, leading the monstrous legion towards the surface. But his true target wasn't humanity, it was Marduk's throne. He planned to use the chaos he unleashed to usurp the king of gods, to become the new ruler of the pantheon. Meanwhile, in the bustling city of Babylon, a sense of unease settled like a shroud over the hearts of men. The once clear, cerulean skies turned an ominous shade of crimson, and the air grew thick with a suffocating, sulphurous stench. Then, the screams began. Faint at first, like the wind moaning through a deserted necropolis, they quickly escalated into a cacophony of terror that pierced the very heavens. The 7, unleashed upon the world, were a plague of nightmares made flesh. Cities that had stood for millennia crumbled under their onslaught. The stench of blood and burning flesh choked the air, and the once fertile fields ran red with the lifeblood of the innocent and the guilty alike. Panic and despair gripped the hearts of men as they fled before the tide of destruction, their pleas for divine intervention swallowed whole by the deafening roar of the apocalypse. News of the devastation reached Marduk, who was far from Babylon, his divine statue undergoing repairs after a recent celestial skirmish. Fury, potent and terrible, contorted his face as he received the news. Could this be Erra's doing? The very thought sent a tremor of unease through the lesser gods who surrounded him. Erra, reveling in the havoc he had wrought, arrived at Marduk's deserted palace in Babylon. With a cruel smile twisting his lips, he positioned himself as the city's protector, a ruse to further his plans for usurpation. When Marduk finally returned, his rage was a storm breaking. Erra, he roared, his voice a celestial thunderbolt that shook the very foundations of the ziggurat. What is the meaning of this carnage? What foul sorcery have you unleashed upon my people? Erra, his face a mask of feigned innocence, spread his hands wide. Marduk, he purred, his voice dripping with false sincerity. I have merely quelled the humans' rebellion in your absence. A necessary purge to restore order. A tense silence stretched between them, thick with suspicion. Marduk's gaze, usually radiating power and wisdom, was clouded with a storm of doubt. Erra's words hung in the air, a challenge, a lie Marduk desperately hoped to unravel. Lies boomed a voice from the heavens. It was Ishtar, goddess of war and love, her arrival a whirlwind of shimmering blue and gold. Erra seeks your throne, Marduk. He has used the chaos as a smokescreen for his ambition. Erra's carefully constructed facade cracked. A snarl contorted his face, revealing the monstrous hunger that lurked beneath. With a roar that shook the heavens, he lunged at Marduk, a blur of crimson and obsidian. The ensuing battle was a clash of titans, shaking the very foundations of Babylon. Marduk, fueled by righteous fury, unleashed bolts of pure lightning that split the sky. Erra, his power amplified by the Seven's chaos, countered with blasts of searing flame and plagues of locusts that darkened the sky. The lesser gods, caught in the crossfire, scattered in terror, seeking refuge from the divine storm. Below, the city of Babylon became a battleground. Buildings crumbled under the impact of celestial blows, streets ran with molten rock and blood. The terrified screams of mortals mingled with the thunderous roars of the gods. The fight raged on, a dance of destruction that threatened to tear the very fabric of reality apart. Neither god gained the upper hand. Marduk, though powerful, was weighed down by the need to protect the city. Erra, fueled by ambition and a growing sense of desperation, unleashed more and more of the Seven's destructive power. Suddenly, a sickening crack echoed through the air. One of the city's massive ziggurats, weakened by the celestial battle, began to crumble. Its collapse would unleash a torrent of molten sulfur from the underworld, engulfing Babylon in an inferno. Marduk, seeing the impending catastrophe, made a split-second decision. With a mighty roar, he channeled his remaining power to create a shimmering barrier around the collapsing ziggurat, temporarily containing the molten chaos. But the effort left him drained, vulnerable. Erra, sensing Marduk's weakened state, saw his chance. With a ferocious grin, he launched a final, devastating attack. A wave of pure, unadulterated chaos, fueled by the Seven's unbridled rage, surged towards Marduk. Would Marduk, weakened and depleted, be able to withstand this final assault? Or would Erra succeed in usurping the throne, plunging the world into an age of unending darkness and chaos? The fate of gods and men hung in the balance, the outcome teetering on the edge of a celestial knife.